needed something. The week had gone so wrong for Harry, most notably the court case, because she would have been at the Invictus Games, I'm pretty sure, launch on Friday, if it had gone well. It was all the better for her not being there because he looked like the Harry of old. But then to see them go into and meet, I think that's a good thing in a way because from a family point of view. It's a grandfather wanting to see his grandchildren. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it was the soap opera of the week that every day was a different episode. That was what I think was so unedifying for everybody. And it's all Harry's doing. And then to started with him saying the judge's verdicts was a whitewash, criticising the King's Court, and a High Court judge. So it was, no wonder. And Meghan didn't say a thing all week. And normally, if it had gone well, I'm pretty sure we would have heard her shouting from the rooftops. So I'm glad they did meet. If it was an hour, I don't know how long it was. There's all sorts of speculation, but at least they've met. He then appears doing goat yoga, I think, on Saturday.
Goat
like
yoga?
Well, there was some function. We're Scotty Little Soldiers at Maxstoke Castle in the Midlands. And I think there was something.
Royal author Andrew Lowney, who spent years covering this family, put it simply. Too early to call it a full reconciliation, but the fact there were no leaks and no photos is, in his view, a genuinely good sign. He's argued Charles was in a difficult spot either way, refused to see his grandchildren and look callous, or agree and risk being accused of rewarding bad behaviour. By keeping it low-key, Lowney suggests the king held the moral high ground without turning it into a public statement. Now compare that to what the rest of the family was doing that same week. While Harry and Meghan were reportedly slipping through the Highgrove gates undercover, William, Kate, George and Charlotte were doing the exact opposite, walking straight into centre court in broad daylight, cameras rolling for the Wimbledon men's final. Kate, fresh off presenting the trophy at the women's final the day before, stepped out again to hand Jannik Sinner his winner's dish after his victory over Alexander Zverev, with George and Charlotte right beside her in the royal box, alongside a guest list that read like a film premiere. One brother's family made headlines by trying to avoid them entirely. The others made headlines simply by showing up in the sunshine. It's almost too neat a contrast to be an accident. Harry choosing invisibility, William choosing visibility, both in their own way making a statement about what kind of royal life they want their children to have. One behind gates that don't open for cameras, the other in the most photographed seats in British sport. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? Two brothers, two completely different playbooks. William's approach has always been the safe institutional one. Be seen, be steady, let the pictures do the talking. Harry's approach, at least this time, was the opposite. Say nothing, show nothing, and let the silence speak instead. Neither one is necessarily wrong, but side by side they make the distance between these two men look wider than any headline could. Word is, William isn't thrilled about the Highgrove visit, regardless. Commentators close to royal reporting, including Lowney, have suggested the Prince of Wales may see his father's approach as too soft, that the only way to deal with the situation in William's view is a firmer line. None of this is confirmed by the palace, and Kensington Palace hasn't commented. But the theory making the rounds is that William feels the years of public criticism aimed at Catherine in particular have left a wound that isn't healing quickly, whatever happens between Charles and his grandchildren. So while one brother spent his Sunday afternoon in the world's most public royal box, the other spent his getting his children in and out of Gloucestershire without a single photograph. If you wanted a snapshot of exactly where these two relationships stand right now, you probably couldn't design a better one. So, what are people actually saying about all this? Reaction online has split roughly into three camps. One group sees the Highgrove visit as exactly what it looks like. A grandfather, getting older, wanting time with grandchildren he barely knows, and reads the Wimbledon appearance as nothing more than William and Kate simply living their normal, public-facing royal life. A second group is far more sceptical about the timing of Harry's visit, questioning whether it conveniently surfaced right after a rough week of headlines for Harry, and wondering whether brand Sussex, as some commentators have bluntly put it, benefits from the public knowing there's still a connection to the family they've spent years publicly criticising.
Can you ever see a reunion between William and Harry?
Not at the moment. I don't think so. And I'm sure he might have had a view with his father about the whole thing. And for Meghan, it's achieved what she wants. It's once again re-established, and maybe not been seen, but we read the news story, that they're still part of the royal family. And that, I think, is what people find.
Oh, she didn't want to be part of the royal family. Yeah. She called them racists and everything else.
But brand Sussex is entirely dependent on some sort of association. Hence the reason why when you see all her packaging for her as ever, all I can hope is that the jam, they had some proper jam served at the tea from Highgrove rather than the slop that Meghan calls strawberry spread.
Strawberry spread?
Well, they can't call it a jam because the consistency is not quite right, and because it's sloppy, basically.
Do you think she will have been... Do you think that you say she'd have been chuffed to bits? Do you think it would have been awkward for her with Charles and Camilla?
I think the whole thing might have been a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they would have briefed them and said, right, no pictures, no reporting to the press. There would have been definite confirmation of ground rules. Because what we don't want, the royal family don't want, is that a couple of weeks down the line, we have a bare-all interview from Harry saying, what went on at the meeting, whether it was good, bad or indifferent. So that, I think, has to be the most important outcome of this. No leaking, no telling of what went on at the meeting. If it does, then that will further erode trust between other members of the royal family.
Do you think we'll ever see Meghan again in the UK?
And a third group is simply watching the optics side by side, one brother courting the cameras, the other avoiding them, and drawing their own conclusions about who's more comfortable in the role they were born into. That last comparison seems to be the one even neutral observers can't resist making. Same family, same weekend, two completely different relationships with the public eye.